And in a special way, let's remember our bishop today. He celebrated 7 years yesterday. And so let's remember him and his dedication to our diocese and wish him another 7 wonderful years with us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come,
Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, and kindle in us the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we shall be created, and you shall renew the face of the earth. O God, who by the light of the Holy Spirit instructs the hearts of the faithful, grant that by the same Holy Spirit we may be truly wise and ever rejoice in his consolations. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
The Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, I meant to make a copy for you of the summary page at the end of this, but I will just get it to Gene, and he can get it to you next week. For whatever reason, the key that always works into the door I go into the copier in the office today decided it didn't want to open. Either that means that they demoted me to some other level that I don't know about, or maybe they did something I don't know about, but they took away my key, I guess. Anyway, so today we're into generosity, and of course, right away I think we hear that word and we think cash, And he's going to kind of talk a bit about that, but he's also going to talk in a much deeper way about money and the way we need to consider it. And so as we go along, we'll see that. But he starts off with a very interesting subtitle for generosity: the happiest people I know.
What page are we on?
And we are on generosity, which is on page 109. Okay, you won't find the 109, so go to 110 and back up 1. Okay? And I wanted to start with a short meditation that comes out of this book called Rediscover Jesus, which is written by Matthew Kelly as well. And he has in this book 40 meditations, but the 11th one on generosity says that generosity is one of the most radical invitations the gospel makes, and among the most difficult to live. Whoever has 2 coats must share with anyone who has none, and whoever has food must do likewise. So here's how he starts out. Jesus wants you to become the most generous person in your sphere of influence. He wants you to astonish people with your generosity, to be generous with your time, talent, and treasure. But he wants you to go far beyond these. Those are the traditional Catholic ones, right? Time, talent, treasure. We hear those all the time. He wants you to be generous with your praise and encouragement. To be generous with your compassion and patience. Ouch! I was okay with the first one. Generous with patience? Come on, Matthew. Be realistic.
That's what he's trying to tell you.
Right? So they sting us a little bit. He wants generosity to reach into every area of your life so that through you, he can love and intrigue the people in your life. Then he goes on to look at our material belongings. Open your wardrobe. How many coats, shirts, sweaters, pairs of pants, shoes? When was the last time you even wore some of that stuff? What was Jesus saying? If you have more than you need, be generous to those who don't have what they need. Let me repeat that. If you have more than you need, be generous to those who don't have what they need. You have heard it said, God provides for humanity's need, not for humanity's greed. Wow. Jesus, God provides for our needs, but not for our greed. Then he closes with this. The gospel liberates us from selfishness by inspiring us to be generous. Great lives belong to men and women who see life as a generosity contest. Decide right now, here today, to live a life of staggering generosity. Astonish the people who cross your path with your generosity. There may be no more practical way to bring Christianity to life. So very beautiful reflection in here. But as he says, radical and challenging. One of the things that always strikes me when we talk about generosity isn't written in Matthew Kelly, but is St. John Paul's The Law of the Gift. And what he taught was that everything we have is from God, and what we're called to do is to keep it and hold it to ourselves. No. What does he call us to do? give it all away. All of it. All of it? No, wait, 10% it says in the Bible. No, all of it. Give all of it away. Because what happens when we try to give it all away is God gives us more gifts. And then try to give all those gifts away. And what will God do? Give you more gifts. So the very simple teaching in the law of the gift is the more you attempt to give away, the more you receive, and that cycle continues. And for those of us that have been generous, and it doesn't just mean monetarily, it can mean as time, talent, and treasure, with our time or with our talent, somehow it always seems like God provides. We may not quite figure out how it works, but somehow it always does work. So try it. Give more than you can and see what happens. Because all of a sudden, I think, instead of being worn out, it's almost like, you ever had a really big meal the night before, and you just stuff yourself? Let's say you went to that great smorgasbord, and you just stuffed yourself. And then the next morning, what are you? You're really hungry. How come? Because your stomach was huge, got expanded, and then it got emptied, and now it's, give me another big meal, right? It's kind of how this generosity works, I think. When we give a lot away, we actually hunger for the joy that we got when we did it the first time. And the more we give away, the more we hunger for that joy. And the beauty of it is, as we all know, it's better to give than to receive. That's really true. But we first have to live it, to convince ourselves. You can't just say, well, that's a nice saying, but mine, right? So, another little story I heard from Father Weir when we were at the men's conference, which I just loved, because it really hit me right between the eyes, was when he was asking his communion ministers to really show their devotion to the Eucharist. He said, look, I really want you all to spend 1 hour a week in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I think that's what you should do. You're a communion minister.
Oh.
And he said, by the way, you men, because you're men, I would prefer you to do the early morning hours. So whatever that is, midnight to 5 a.m. or whatever, I'd like you to do those. And he said, they came up with all these excuses why they couldn't do it. He said, let me ask you a question. If I told you that if you spent that 1 hour a week in front of the Blessed Sacrament at 2 or 3 in the morning, and at the end of 1 year I gave you $1 million, would you do it? Oh, yes, I would, Father. Of course I would. 52 hours before the Blessed Sacrament, $1 million? It's a pretty good rate, huh? Probably more than you charge. Okay, just kidding. Lawyers are expensive.
I thought we don't have enough to give away.
All those administrative fees, I know. Okay. But just think about that for a minute, how quickly we would say, oh, for $1 million, wow, what would I do for $1 million, right? And then Father Larry stung us with, well, if you're willing to do that, then it sounds like you love money more than you love the Eucharist. Ouch. Ouch. Very well put. But boy, that stung. Because I thought sometimes we feel that way, don't we? This much time in prayer, this much time before the Eucharist, this much time to go to Mass, this much time. But boy, if I was given some monetary reward for that amount of time, I would jump at that opportunity. So it really kind of hit me and made me really think deeply about trying to be generous, not just with my money, but particularly generous with the time God gives me to live, to actually spend time with Him. See, we don't always think about how generous we are with the gifts He's given us, but time is one that we should really think about. How much time do I really spend with God? And really, in a sense, alone with God. I mean, communal prayer is wonderful, at Mass or in different liturgies or whatever. But how much time do you really spend alone with God and really give of Himself to you? That's really a tough question for us to answer sometimes. So I really encourage you, if you can, and He even says, even if it's only 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day, to get into a pattern, right, of spending that time. And as He says right from the beginning, these generous people are the happiest people that He knows. And God made us to be happy. God made us to share in Christ's ultimate victory and in His joy. And so, how do we accomplish this? Well, one way is to actually be generous. Because as He says, in the middle of the first page there. Their happiness, people's happiness, is not dependent on things going their way or on getting what they want, or on getting what they want. See, the selfish things, right? Our happiness isn't rooted in selfish kind of things, getting what we want. Instead, their happiness is rooted in the life of God.
What page you on?
On the very first page, the happiest people I know, right in the middle of that paragraph. And what he's saying there is that when our happiness is rooted in the life of God instead of the worldly things, okay, that's when we're truly happy. Okay, we're really rooted in God. Okay, so let's just move along to the next couple pages here. And he talks about God's generosity at the beginning of page 110, and he says in that second paragraph there, in everything we attribute to God, I see immense acts of generosity. Creation, the free will he gives us. Wow, that's pretty generous, right? I mean, wouldn't it have been better for God to just control us so that we didn't screw up? Sometimes I wish he did.
Yeah.
But, you know, he gives us free will. Wow. Giving us control, you know, that's what he's really doing, right? He's giving us control. He's giving us our independence, in a sense. The life he gives us, the love he gives us, the generosity of God is awesome, he concludes. And then he gives all sorts of different scriptural generosities at the bottom of 110, the generosity of Jesus on the top of 111. I won't go through all of those. But he gives all these different figures: Mary, the Magi, the centurion, the 12 apostles, Jesus himself and his generosity to people. And then he calls us to that generosity on that middle paragraph on 111. Generosity is at the heart of the Christian life. And it's one way, he says, in the third line, we are able to bring the love of God to life for others in a very real and tangible way. God is by his very nature generous, so he wants to give us of his, so then we want to live it ourselves, right? Wonderful example of this, I think, are two organizations we have in Knoxville. We have the Ladies of Charity and we have Catholic Charities. And, you know, both of those organizations, you might think, are dedicated toward people that are Catholic because they're called Catholic Charities, but yet over 90% of the services they provide are to people that are not Catholic. Same thing with the Ladies of Charity. They don't ask you for your Catholic card when you walk in the door, do they? You know? Instead, they do just the opposite. They reach out to those in the community to serve, as does Catholic Charities. So there's all these wonderful women at the Ladies of Charity, and even some auxiliary men. There's all these people in Catholic Charities that give themselves away in service to those organizations, and they're volunteering and so on, and working for, you know, for rather small sums to be Christ and God's presence in the world. So what about the world? Here's a great line in the middle of that second full paragraph, where it says, but the world doesn't see it that way. 3 lines in on the right. While God is inviting us to joyful life of selfless generosity, the world is trying to seduce us into an all-encompassing selfishness. God invites us to a life of gratitude. Let me just go through this real quick. While the world fosters discontent. Now listen to what he says here, because it's wonderful. He says, what does the world do? I'll just read this real fast. The world rouses fear. The world promotes getting. The world rallies behind self-determinism. The world touts ownership, encourages entitlement, tells us to look out for ourselves. The world, he says, operates from a place of scarcity. And the world encourages us to live a small, selfish life. You know, grasping for what we can and then keeping it. Yeah. Yeah.
Always had this philosophy that I've taught my kids.
Mm-hmm.
There is no such thing as selflessness, because selflessness means you do it all for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just said,
Mm-hmm.
when you give things away, you get this good, happy feeling about what a
More to give,
wonderful
right.
thing. So really, selflessness is not the word. I think it may be more doing for others, but you're going to get something back.
Well, I'll tell you how I'll respond to that, but I'll wait until I get there.
Okay.
It's going to have to do with doing God's will.
So I skipped ahead.
That's okay, we'll get there. But that's sort of the answer at the end of that is, you know, God's will versus your will. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But look at all those items. I mean, they're kind of wonderful. And you know, you can just pick any one and you probably say, yep, I can see what you mean. You know, or what he means. I don't want to go into all details, but one of those probably spoke to you a little more than the other, so we'll just let you leave it at that. Okay? So as he goes down into one of the characteristics of a highly engaged Catholic or a dynamic Catholic, he says that was one of the things that he noticed was their sense of generosity. But I like this about 8 lines down on page 112, on the right it starts with in fact. I'll let you go there. I see the words in fact on the right side, about 8 lines down. Page 112, it's on the right side, in fact. So he says, when these people talked to me, they didn't speak about extraordinary things. In fact, I heard nothing in those interviews that suggested that these people were any more blessed than others. So the person that recognized their blessings, he said, just like everybody else that had the same amount of blessings. But these folks recognized it and took the time regularly to identify the people, the opportunities, and possessions that brought them gratitude. They recognized it. Right? We are at our best when we are grateful, he says in the next paragraph. And one of the leading indicators of my own spiritual health is whether or not I am in a place of gratitude. Now, think about when you're in a bad mood, because boy, this really struck me too. He said, when I'm in a bad mood or I get overwhelmed by a situation, I've usually lost the perspective of gratitude. You know, it's like the whole world's coming down on me. Why is my life the way it is? I'm in a bad mood. Next time you're in a bad mood, ask yourself if you're grateful. Because it's impossible to be grateful and be in a bad mood. I thought that was kind of funny. Instead of thankful or resentful, you know, I mean, we can be resentful instead of thankful, right? It's impossible to be grateful and in a bad mood. It's when we step away from the gratitude that we become irritable, restless, and discontented. You know? So I can look at a day where I've got lots of things to do and say, look at all the things I have to do. Today's going to be an awful day. I can do that. Or I can be grateful when I wake up in the morning and go, look at all the opportunities I have today. Look at the gifts I've been graced with to deal with those opportunities. You know? Give you an example. On Friday, I got a call about 5 o'clock. 500 people at the retreat. Father Gately's not feeling well. Deacon, can you leave the stations? I had no advance notice of this. You know, I wasn't planning on it. Can you do it? Yes, I'll be there. So I get there, and of course no one has any plan. I'm just going to have to do it, right? So I did. Went fine. Next day, in the middle of Mass, thinking, nobody prepared prayers of the faithful today. Well, I guess I'll have to do that too. And I did it. Now I could be complaining at the people, saying, why didn't you do this, and why didn't you do that, and why didn't you tell me this? But instead, I look back at it as an opportunity that was given to me. It's all in how I look at it, right? I can be kind of bummed about it, or I can be really happy about it and go with it. So I think he says pretty clearly in here that when we are in those bad moods, or we go in those bad places, a lot of times it's because we're not grateful. We're sort of irritable. And when something can irritate us, it does, right? We're sort of restless. Something bothers us, or we're discontented, right? We can be in that kind of mood, and then things get to us real quick. So he said, that's a wonderful way to see if I'm in a place of gratitude or not. How do I deal with those times when I'm irritated or restless or discontented? Okay, on the stewardship and providence. So here he's going to talk about the three traditional Catholic things of time, talent, and treasure. And one thing he really challenges us to is how we use our time. Now, automatically what we sort of do when we do this is we think about how much time we spend at church, how much time we spend in prayer, how much time we spend in some sort of ministry, which is logical. But he doesn't kind of look at it that way. And at the bottom of 113, he challenges us to just look at the last 24 hours. So 5 lines from the bottom, he says, if you consider the past 24 hours, were you a good steward of this time? How much time did you waste? Wow. A lot. How much time did you spend that didn't help you become a better version of yourself? Did you take time to pray? Did you give prayer your best time when you had that energy? Or did you give God your worst time when you're exhausted? So think about the stewardship of your time. How well did you use the day to become the best version of yourself to bring glory to God? Great question. Okay, next one. Talents. Second paragraph. Are you a good steward of the talents God has entrusted to you? Did you use your talents to create the most good for the most people? I might just use them for myself. Maybe I made some money, and I want that new pair of shoes, or whatever, right? Maybe all about me. But instead, did I use my talents to create the most good for the most people? Okay, next question. Are you a good steward of the treasure God has entrusted to you? Grateful for the money and possessions, the things you have. Are you grateful for those things? You know, do you make them available to others to enjoy? And so on. So I think those are wonderful questions to ponder. Okay, but then he gets to the harder question. And it's on 115. he says, that the central question in any discussion about divine providence is do you trust that God will provide for you? Because when we really trust God, then the law of the gift kind of applies, right? We're going to trust that he will give us whatever we give away. So his answer is in the second line there on 115. Intellectually and theologically, it's easy to say, yes, God will provide for me, but practically we prefer not to have to rely on God. Instead, we like to take things in our own hands, and that's the line we cross when we join the world's perspective of self-determinism. Right? Instead of trusting God, we begin to trust ourselves. So God's promise is he will provide for our needs, not that he will provide for our greed. And when we place our wants before our neighbor's needs, we abandon our post as stewards. So a wonderful homily I heard on this by a bishop was, God doesn't begrudge you to have what you need. He wants you to have what you need. What he doesn't want you to do is keep so much more than what you need when there is a fellow human being who doesn't have what they need. So keep what you need and then share what you don't. Mother Teresa's wonderful line, about 10 lines down from the bottom of 115, live simply so that others may simply live. Okay. Nice little line from her. Okay. Then in the bottom of 116, he mentions, sometimes we might feel overwhelmed by this. Oh, what are you asking, the wife? He says, well, we can't do everything, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything, right? We can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean we couldn't save some. Don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. So again, this is Matthew Kelly's incremental spirituality. Do what you can. He has that wonderful line, I can do that. So maybe you're comfortable with one of the suggestions. I can do that. Maybe you're not with the other one. Okay. Just start with one you can, and then grow from there. In the middle of that first full paragraph, Pope Leo XIII. Once necessity and propriety are taken care of, everything else belongs to the poor. And I remember one of the quotes from Bishop Barron's class where he said, one of the people said, if you have 2 shirts, one belongs to you. The other belongs to your fellow man. And I looked at my closet after that, and I saw all those golf shirts, and I went. And then I saw all my wife's shoes.
Don't touch the shoes.
I know. Don't go there.
That one's smart, pal.
Yeah. I don't have that many shoes. But, you can look at certain things and you kind of know you got too many of those things, And I like that question at the beginning, When was the last time I wore that? Fulton Sheen. Wow. This one, ouch too. Because I tend to do this. Never measure your generosity by what you give, but rather by what you have left. Ouch! I have a lot left. I feel like I'm pretty generous until I read that. Got too much left. It's a tough one.
Good point.
Yep. Next paragraph, he just talks briefly about social justice, and essentially what he's saying there is at the bottom of 117, that last couple sentences, he says, once we immerse ourselves in the Gospels, we realize there is a level of generosity that goes beyond simply giving money and things to the poor. It's a generosity challenges to change the conditions that make them poor. That's what social justice is about, right? Trying to change the conditions that make them poor as best we can, okay? Through our voting or through our civil actions or service or whatever. Okay. All right, next, the scope of generosity. This is one of his main sections in here. Because what he wants to get away from is just all money, money, money. And he's saying what a lot of this is about that generosity is really a spirit of generosity, not just time, talent, and treasure. Okay? So in that first paragraph on 119, not the full one, but the one that starts with the variety of ways right at the top there, he says, in the second line, generosity is this trademark of dynamic Catholics. But about 5 lines from there it says, it was a scope of their generosity that wasn't particularly inspiring. It wasn't just, money. But what I discovered was not just a spirit, but a spirituality of generosity that reached deep into every corner of their lives. So listen to this line. Being generous is not just something that they do, it is a part of who they are. It's central to their values, and they often think in terms of how they can do the most good with what they have at their disposal. How they can do the most good. Okay, so love. Thomas Aquinas says is willing the good of the other as other, right? Giving your life away and willing in others' good, not for your benefit, but for their benefit, right? Do the most good with what you have. Love the most. Okay, be generous with your love. Okay. Then he talks about the 7% and their qualities. And he says, these people are generous, but look at the words he uses. Lovers, parents, grandparents, neighbor, colleague, right? All those kind of things are the way people see them as generous. Not just with money, but generous in those different roles, okay? Another line I liked at the top of 120, very first line, there was a woman. She's always looking for opportunities to be generous. Always looking for them, okay? And then in the second full paragraph, ask them what the source of this great generosity is, and they always say the same thing, he says. They consider themselves so blessed, and how they themselves have been the recipients of incredible generosity through the course of their lives. Strikingly grateful. Because they're grateful, they're generous. So he says, it becomes apparent that our gratitude and generosity are inseparably linked. And then the two forms of this that stands out are service and virtue. And they really want to give back, right? Not because they have guilt, but because they're grateful. Okay? Very grateful for all the things that they have, so they want to give back. Okay, let's close this section out with the top of 122, where he says, and I open with this, 3 lines from the top. One way we can be generous with God is by spending time with Him, dedicating a specific time each day for prayer. Not just the leftovers, not the scraps, but a specific time each day for prayer is one way to be generous with God. And quite frankly, I think the best way to do it is right when you wake up in the morning. Because that sets the tone. If you do it at the end of the day, and you go to sleep, it doesn't set the tone. Okay? The beginning of the day can set the tone for your whole day, which is wonderful. Okay? Because another way is honoring the Sabbath. It requires a real intentionality to honor the Sabbath. Really honoring the Sabbath, right? Remembering it's God's day the whole day. But then, to answer Gary's question, but the hardest way for us to be generous with God is by surrendering to His will for our lives. Thy will be done on earth. So, what Gary was kind of getting at, which is a very good point, is that, you know, even when we do something for someone else, it makes us joyful. We get something from it, right? Right? Make sense? So in a way, it can be a selfish thing. It's like, another example, I'll be really good in this life so I can make sure I get to heaven. So I'm going to be the best I can be so I can get to heaven. Selfish. Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to hear that. Because we can do that. We can live for ourselves, but do things for others, so every time we do something for others, we go, yes, I am so good. I'll be in heaven, right? Or I feel great. This is what I want. So I get my little pat on the back to myself and I get these rewards. Okay? Now, that is somewhat true, but take it a step further when we have to now do what God wills. Ouch. So I don't get to choose now. God chooses. Now it becomes different. Because now it's not about me choosing what's going to make me feel good. It's allowing God to choose. And guess what happens when God chooses? Every time. Every time. Suffering. Who? Suffering. Now, why? Wait a minute, Deacon, that can't be right. Why would there be suffering when God chooses? Because I didn't choose. As soon as I let God choose, there's going to be some suffering involved. I mean, it doesn't take long to look at the life of Jesus. It doesn't take long to look at the lives of the great saints and say, they never suffered. Never, Deacon. Oh, they were happy. Oh, yeah, they were happy all right while they were suffering. Think about it for just a second. Take a look at any of those great saints, prophets, people in the Bible, the holy ones. Did they suffer? You bet.
So we can only make God happy by suffering? That seems...
No, we're not making God happy. We're not making God
Well,
happy.
He requires us.
We're making, no. That's how we become happy. Oh, Deacon, you got that backwards. We become happy by being selfish. We can't possibly be happy by suffering. And guess what? We can't be happy without it. It seems so backwards. So we just want happiness like pleasure happiness. But when we turn over our will to God's, that in and of itself is suffering. Because God's going to ask us to do things that are out of our comfort zone. Because they're not our things anymore. They're His things.
You've got to broaden your definition of suffering from pain.
Right.
I mean,
it's not,
from physical pain to
Right.
something
It's-
else again. Like
Yeah.
giving up your time is, in a sense,
It's-
suffering.
It is. And doing things you don't want to do at the time. Or things
Because you
you're
want to
tired.
have to do them for somebody else.
You're too tired to do.
You continually suffer when you do things for your children, for
Yeah.
instance.
So do we suffer in our best relationship? Take your best relationship. Let's say it's with the spouse. Do you suffer? Do we suffer with our children? We all can kind of smile at that. Of course we do, right? Yet it's our best relationships, right? Our family. Do we suffer with family members? Oh boy, that opens a can of worms. Is there any family member you don't suffer with a little bit? Right? And then unfortunately they get to suffer with you, right? We have a little payback when they have to suffer with us. But we all know that relationships entail suffering. They just do, don't they? Just think of any relationship that hasn't had some amount of suffering in it. When you've had to bite your tongue. Or answer a difficult question that you really didn't want to answer, right? Or you had to do something that you didn't want to do.
Or get up out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning to feed the baby.
Feed the baby, yeah. Or whatever. So just think about it. You know, to have true joy, to have that depth of joy, there's going to be some suffering. There's going to be. And so the sooner we get over it, the better, because they're inextricably linked. Okay, they just are. Now, does God want us to suffer? Yes. Why? Because He wants us to experience the fullness of the joy. So when Jesus comes and suffers for us, as Father Barron says it so well, Bishop Barron says, Jesus dies a happy man on the cross. Because why? Because He's done His Father's will, not His, but His Father's will. So in order for us to die a happy person, are we going to look back and say, well, let's see, boy, my bank account's really good. I was a great employee, and I have my resume all ready for God. I've been a good person. Are we going to be thinking those things? Maybe. But Jesus wasn't. He wasn't attached to the worldly thing. Instead, He was attached to God's will. Okay. So He dies a happy man on the cross because of what? Following His Father's will, which entailed a lot of suffering, and particularly at the end, right? So we got to kind of remember when He says, if you want to save yourself, what do? Lose yourself. If you want to be exalted, what do? Humble yourself. See, it's all backwards to us. See, the world would say, if you want to be exalted, raise yourself up. If you want to save yourself, be good. Do all the right things, right? But instead, He says, give yourself away. Be generous. And suffer. Because if you deny your cross, then you deny me, right?
In the 40 days of Lent,
Yeah,
you do, that Matthew
Yeah,
Kelly does with
yeah.
those emails. And one of them we talked about, I think it was this week, when Bernie, we talked about sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that seems to me like what you're talking about
Yeah.
here. But he talked about the fact that we sacrifice in order to get this long-term benefit, so it's still not selfless. I mean,
Yeah.
like, get up at 3 o'clock in order to feed the baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can have a child that we have, that we want.
Yeah.
We
Right.
make these, all these sacrifices.
Yeah, that's the way
have-
we usually think of it.
Right.
Which is wrong, but that's what you
I mean,
usually
that's,
Yeah. So-
I don't think I've ever chosen
Yeah.
to do something that caused me discomfort, pain, or whatever definition you want to give of
Okay.
sacrifice or suffering, where I did not anticipate
Yeah.
something in return, even though it's not
Right.
material
Yeah.
or
Yeah. So we're going to convert you today.
maybe eventually go to heaven.
Today's your conversion experience opportunity. Now, you can't read that. 'cause it's-
I never do it.
Right, right.
It's
This is-
probably semantic, the definition of
No, it really
selfless.
isn't. No, you're hitting on the great
I
point.
think,
Yeah,
semantic with suffering, because I think that the whole, like, how much pain is included in suffering.
Yeah. So Thomas Aquinas says, willing the good of the other as other. I just wrote the first part, willing the good of the other. That's what he says love is, okay? Love is willing the good of the other. If we stop there, let's just say I love you all. I love you all, your parishioners of All Saints, I love you all, right? I will all of your good. all right? And then I think to myself, I am an awesome deacon. I'm so loving, right? See, I can get that reward back, right? People say, oh, deacon, you're doing this job, good talk, good business, right? Now here's the hard words at the end of this. I'll put them in different colors so you can read them. Love is willing to go to the other willing to go to the other, and he said, as other. Now, the way Bishop Barron describes this, he says, this means we have no self-interest. Okay?
No.
He says if we do have self-interest, then it's indirect egotism. We're really stroking our own ego, trying to make ourselves feel good about it. Okay? So that's the key, I think, is thinking about whose will. And if I can get to God's will, when it's not my will, okay, and say, look, I don't want to do this, but I'll do it because you want me to. Solely out of love for the other person and for God, not for what I get out of it. Now you can still be in the back of your mind going, but I know it's going to appreciate it. Okay? That's our humanness. Fine. Okay?
Games people.
But I'm still going in the areas I do not at all want to go into. No way I would ever have chosen this. Okay? And then, you know, you can live that more fully. Now maybe you say, like maybe Gary, you can say, I can only do that 99%. Fine. Maybe 62%. But whatever. But you start to grasp it that I'm not doing it out of love for myself now. I'm doing it really out of love for God and for the other person, because I don't want to do this. This is really suffering. This is making me very sad to deal with. Okay, let me get to your question first.
Suffering to me has such a negative connotation. I mean, I can say I'm willing to sacrifice.
Well, sacrificing, yeah.
But I'm not willing to
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you sacrificing.
Yeah, it's just a matter of expressing
you sacrifice.
But also going back to what Gary said, what Matthew Kelly was doing this week, he had, every day is just like a 1 or 2 minute message,
Mhm.
and he was talking about God's